Good morning everyone, and welcome back to another market analysis for the month of June. Now this month, something really interesting has happened. Oldschool Runescape bonds have finally hit a new all-time high. Over the last couple of weeks, they have hit over 7 mil each, making them pretty unaffordable, but the real question is why. So we're going to talk about that as well as a ton of other interesting things happening in the market this month. Thanks for watching as always. If you enjoyed the video, always appreciate a like on it. Let's get started. So let's start off by taking a look at the price of bonds. Now let's go back to the year view to kind of see what trends we've been seeing in the bond market for the entire year. Now we can see that they actually bottomed out in January, and ever since then they've been climbing and climbing until just over the last week they have now crested 7 mil. So why are bonds this expensive and why do they continue to go up in price over time? If we look back at the all-time pricing history for bonds, we can confirm that they are gradually increasing in price. Of course, there's seasonal up and downs, but there's no denying that when we started tracking bonds, they were 2.3 mil each, and now they are, well, 7 mil, so tripling in value pretty much. Now, there are a few factors at play here. Now, because you paid for bonds with real-life currency, US dollars, pounds, or whatever, the price of bonds is kind of tethered to a real-life currency, which means if the value of, say, the US dollar inflates or deflates, that can have an effect on the price of bonds. And conversely, the economy in old school can also have a pretty significant effect on the price of bonds. If there's tons of gold pieces being dumped into the game and not as much leaving, then there's more excess gold stacking up in the game, and the value of bonds are going to go up just because people are able to and willing to pay more for the same bond item. So in a way, the pricing trend for bonds over time kind of tracks how much gold is coming into RuneScape and how valuable GP is in comparison to, well, real-life currencies. Now that said, if we jump in here to just the last 3 months, there is another pretty significant factor that came into play at the beginning of May. If you see here, it very drastically jumped up from 5 mil to 6 or 6.5 mil in just a matter of a couple of weeks. And this was actually due to a price increase. Now normally membership price increases come semi-often, but it simply increases the price for actual membership. The price of bonds has not been affected in quite a while. Now I believe the price of bonds increased by roughly $1 US, which is about a 10% price increase, which you can see was immediately reflected in a very short period of time. So because of that increase, an upcoming raid, and just generally bonds trending up over time, I think bonds will hit 8 mil by the end of the year, but that's just my prediction. With them already hitting 7 mil, I don't even think that's much of a stretch. Now, one of the bigger updates this month is the Giant's Foundry, and although it's more of a smaller skilling update that focuses a bit on Ironman, it still has had a significant effect on the price of a few different items, those being primarily ores and bars, but also on cannonballs. Now there's a few different rewards from the Giant's Foundry, but one of the more interesting ones is the double ammo mold, which allows you to craft double the amount of cannonballs at once. Now interestingly, even though the update came out on, I think, June 8th, cannonballs didn't really crash that much until a few days ago, where they've gone from 234 down to 174, a pretty big drop off, which makes sense because now you can just craft cannonballs twice as quickly, which means there should be way more cannonballs coming into the game. Now even though cannonballs have crashed by about 50 GP each, which is significant, I'm actually surprised it's not more. I mean, these are just back to where they were worth a few months ago. I guess we'll have to see how far it goes, but my main guess is that, well, the majority of people who are making cannonballs probably bots, and I guess people who want to AFK a lot. And the time it takes for bots to get the double ammo mold might not be worth it, as it could get banned on the way anyway. And there really just is a high demand for cannonballs that maybe the increased production hasn't really changed that much. Because if you look at the amount of cannonballs bought and sold every day, yes, they've gone up a little bit, but not by a hugely notable amount. Now the Giant's Foundry update also did manage to increase the price of mithril bars, steel bars, and adamant bars very temporarily, I might add. Mithril bars peaked at I think around 900, 950 GP, swiftly dropped back down again by about 30 or 40%. Adamantite bars I think went up to about 2300 before dropping right back down to 2000 again. So it is interesting that even smaller, lower level updates can still change the market in notable ways. Now one of the other significant price increases this month has to do with the wilderness weapons. The crossbow is the more significantly affected, peaking at nearly 35 mil. The crossbow is so expensive right now. Looking back over the last 3 months, continually climbing. In the past year, I mean, it's tripled in value. And although it's not as pronounced in the other wilderness weapons, the Thamron's has spiked back up to around 4 mil again, and the Vigorous Chainmace has kind of been staying pretty steady. So what is causing this? Well, I personally think it has to do with the Gielinor Gazettes that have been released this year. It states that sometime in May-June, the Wilderness Boss rework is going to come out, or at least start production. And you know what? It's well at the end of June, and I think there's an expectation we are either going to get some solid information on it pretty soon, or get a release date for when it's coming out. Now the crossbow is by far the most used wilderness weapon, and the strongest currently, so there's the assumption that this will be the best in slot item for when the Wilderness Boss rework comes out. But who is to say that they don't rework it to make these other weapons more viable as well? The fact that the Thamron's right now is 4 mil each is, I gotta say, pure speculation. Back at the beginning of 2020, it was worth around 400k. So it's up 10 times in value in the last 2 years, even though it's not a very good weapon, but there is an assumption that the Thamron's could get changed in the future. Whether that will ever happen, hard to say. Now one thing that is really hard to ignore is how expensive everything is right now. Across the board, if it's a PVM related item, it's most likely gone up in price recently. Thanks to the upcoming third raid, things are at pretty much an all-time high for many different items. The Twisted Bow is now pretty much back to 1.2 bill again, which is pretty much its all-time high, barring the initial release and a little bit back in May of 2018. The Twisted Bow really has skyrocketed back up, and the Tombs of Masket could still be a couple months away. If you look at the Ancestral Robe set, it is higher than it's been since 2018. Looking at Armadillo, it's pretty much the most expensive it's ever been, or at least since it started tracking. Same thing with the Chain Skirt. Now another item that has gone up tremendously, the Kodai Wand, currently worth 113 mil. That's pretty well its highest point ever as well, barring a few months back in 2017. And the list goes on and on and on. Pretty much any item you could select here. Here we have the Twisted Buckler. It is continuing to trend up as well at around 17-18 mil. Pretty much the highest it's been since its release day. Another random item here, the Imbued Heart, by far at its highest point ever, barring of course when it was just released. So there is just so much demand in the RuneScape market right now. Undoubtedly, as soon as Tombs of Masket releases, many items will crash, specifically the ones that aren't as useful in the raid itself. There will also be a few items that are going to skyrocket in price as well. And then predictably, a few months after, the entire market is going to crash significantly, people are going to freak out, sell all their stuff, and then it's going to rebound a bit. Now, although in general things have been going up a lot, there are a few odd outliers here I wanted to highlight. One I find kind of interesting is the Tome of Water. I guess this is just Raids 3 speculation, unless there's some other use that I don't know of. Now before April, the Tome of Water was worth around 800k, but in the middle of May it spiked up to nearly 3 mil, before crashing right back down again. But I would guess that maybe just a tiny tidbit of information was released in a live stream, and that caused people to speculate maybe the Tome of Water is going to be useful in Raids 3, but that's only a guess. Now another really odd one is actually the teleport to house. I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue why this happened. The home teleport tablets went from 500 GP up to 1000 or even 1100 mid-June. I was gone for this, so I had no clue that was going on, and then proceeded to, well, quickly crash right back down again. Now it does coincide with the release of the Giant's Foundry, but that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But either way, kind of weird, right? Anyway guys, that is going to be it for this month's market analysis. I hope you guys found it useful as always. If you want to discuss anything I mentioned in the video, feel free to leave a comment down below. I will definitely read them. And yeah, let me know your guesses on the home teleport tablet and the Tome of Water. Yeah, I'm very curious to know what you guys think. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Here, I want to give a giant thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Nello, Alejandra, The Hybrid, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed to the Dragon tier. Really, I appreciate it so much. Also, a giant thank you to Kaitin987, Mexos, Base Titch, MDM001, and YoYoSub89 for being subscribed to the Runite tier. Appreciate you guys as well. As always, if anyone's looking for a direct way to support me, YouTube membership is the best way to do so. You'll get immortalized in all of my future videos, you can get a custom role on my Discord server, and you'll even know when all my videos are coming out. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.